all the blood that's working up here on your conference head, giving you all these wonderful ideas, trying to figure out how you're going to do this in your local context, all just went into your stomach. So now all those great ideas in your head are all mush. So the probability of you remembering 5 words that I say, conference head being 2 of them, is pretty low. All right, so I guess that's why I got the last spot today. So anyways, we're going to have some fun today, even if you don't remember anything other than that today. So my name, again, I'm Ryan Wolf. I've been the disability ministry pastor at First Christian Church since 2010. I started at First Christian in 2002 as the children's pastor. Over time became the family pastor, overseeing children's and youth and special needs ministries. So that's a little bit of my journey. We'll get into a lot of the journey in a little bit. But since you have conference head, since you have mush on the brain because of all your food and your blood in your stomach, we're going to get a few of you at least actively moving today, all right? So if you look nervous, I'm probably going to call on you, all right? So try not to look nervous, all right? Before we have to go to those links, let me have 4 volunteers today. I'm not going to tell you what you're going to do. I just need 4 volunteers. First and second hand that I saw, third hand that I saw. Come on up front. Come on up front. I need 1 more. All right, come on up. All right. Actually, go up on the stage. All right, we want everyone to be able to see you. So this, for those of you who are going to be listening to this later, online or on tape, what we're doing here is we're having a Lego building contest. All right, we're having a Lego building contest. You're only going to have like 60 seconds to do it. So everybody has a baggie in front of them. There are not an equal amount of parts in there, so I apologize for whoever got the short end of the draw there. What you're going to try to do in 60 seconds is to build a Lego creation that is taller than 12 inches. All right? Okay. Can you do that? I said you. All right? So I like your thinking, though. No, you got some good thinking. So in order to encourage them, you guys need to get some liveliness going, all right? So we're going to count down from 5, and then you're going to cheer them on, and I'm going to make sure that we're keeping the clock here, all right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right. You have 1 minute to build a creation taller than 12 inches, all right? Very good, very good. 50 seconds left. 50 seconds. All right, let's see if anybody can do it. All right, we got some creative thinkers here already, I can see. Yes, very good, very good. Awesome. It's got to be freestanding on its own. You'll have to be able to let go of it. 30 seconds are up. You have 30 seconds left, all right? 30 seconds left. Let's see if we can get it. We can see if we can get it. All right, got to be freestanding at the end of the time. Do what you got to do. It's got to be higher than 12 inches long. All right, 15 seconds left. 15 seconds left. All right, very good. And let's get a countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, Lisa. All right, very good. All right, I'm going to come up on stage. All right, did they do a great job? They did a great job. Let's see if we've got more than 12 inches here for Liz. A little bit short. We got almost 10 inches. Almost 10 inches. All right. So here we go. All right, Christine. Looks like you're pretty close. Still a little bit short. A little bit short. Do you want to talk about what happened here?
It was the brownie and the pretzel.
The brownie and the pretzel's fault. All right. Make sure you pass the blame along. All right. Make sure you pass the blame along. Nobody's responsible for anything, okay? All right, 3. All right, a little bit short there, a little bit short here. All right, this looks a little Dr. Seuss-ish. Doesn't it look like a little Dr. Seuss-ish? I liked it. I like it. All right, so we've got, all right, everybody's short, so I don't get to give out any prizes. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, very good. You can leave them up there. That's fine. You can leave them up there. Yeah, go ahead and leave your creations up there. So the goal was to get to 12 inches. I think the closest we got was about 10 and a half. All right, this is just a little illustration. If we were imagining that the green was the government, they've got enough to get pretty far, right, as far as providing services. We'll say the red is the schools. They do a pretty good job. I'm part of the government and all that. But the schools do a pretty good job. You're part of the schools? Who said thank you? All right. Let's give him a round of applause. All right, yeah. He works hard in the schools, trying to provide services. Okay. All right. This is going to be... That's the government? Okay, all right. That's the government. All right. Very good. And we'll call the yellow the church, right? The church gives a pretty good effort. But who was on the end? Who was on the end? It was Liz, right? All right. Liz was on the end. She said in the beginning, she says, "Can we combine pieces?" That's the whole point of this breakout. Okay. We're talking about impacting your community through disability ministry. The whole point is that nobody has all the pieces. All right. And unless you combine some pieces, we can't effectively serve our communities. So that's kind of the whole point. Thanks for being good sports. Thanks for ruining the illustration before it started. I'm just kidding. No, it was good. It was good. You probably have a handout, hopefully, in front of you. All right. It looks a little funky. It's supposed to because my brain works a little differently than others. That's what my daughter says as well. But if you want, you can grab one of these on the way out. I encourage you to do so. All right. So let's talk about our communities. Our communities used to be set up a certain way, all right? You'd have homes everywhere, but tell me what was always built into the middle of a community? A church, right? Okay? Because the church was the center of the community, all right? You'd also have a school. You'd also have the government. The government is made out of black Lego pieces. So, all right? So that's good, all right? So that's how a community used to be set up, all right? The church was at the center. Everybody worked together. But there's something that happened. I'd like to tie it back to being Walmart's fault or McDonald's fault. Back around the Industrial Revolution, when things become readily available to everybody. All right, so when McDonald's goes mainstream, goes everywhere, Walmart goes mainstream everywhere, nobody has to work together to have their needs met because everything can be met for them by just going out and getting it. And somehow we have the disintegration of communities where communities no longer need to rely on each other, but people can get most of their needs met on their own. So that's where we are today, right? We have a lot of different individual groups trying to meet needs, but something's happened in our economy as well where nobody has enough resources. So that's where we stand today. So we asked the question, why community partnerships? And this is what I'd like to say. Sorry if it's a little hard to read there. It says, no one holds the key to all information or resources. Reach out to others. Together we achieve more, the whole team concept. And kingdom building opportunities will fall into your lap. Okay, so that's kind of the why behind community partnerships. Ultimately, you want to do it because you want to reach people for the kingdom, okay? And here's what I'd like to say here as well. I mean, depending on your context that you're coming from, your community size, your church size, you may see some awesome things at Accessibility Summit. You may see churches that are doing just unbelievable things and say, that's awesome, but my church could never do that because we're not a big church. We don't have a big budget. What I want to tell you about is this. Community partnerships, kingdom impact, your church size and your church budget have no bearing on that, okay? This is the good news for you, especially if you're coming from a smaller church that has maybe little or no budget. Our story at First Christian Church, the explosion of our disability ministry happened in a period of decline for our church. Our church had just bought a golf course, 120 acres, and built a $25 million project. We moved in. The people didn't show up. We had 2 senior pastor transitions in 3 years. We went from 2,000 to 800. We had complete budget freezes where we weren't allowed to spend any money. And in the midst of this decline was the explosion of our disability ministry. It's because this ministry isn't dependent upon budget dollars. The only capital that you need is people. The only capital that you need is God. And the phoenix that rose from the ashes for First Christian Church was disability ministry. And I'm excited to share some of that with you today and talk about kind of how it happened for us. through community partnerships. So the first thing that you need to do is know how to ask the right question, okay? So if you want to make an impact in your community, you got to start with one question. Here's your question. What can we do to be a blessing to the community? This is the only question you need to have in your toolbox as you meet with community leaders. What can we do to be a blessing to the community? So you're going to call up a different community leader in different organizations, and you're going to say, hey, can I take you out to lunch? Or can you come to our church for a meeting? Or can we come to you? We have a question we want to ask you. But here's the deal with the question. Once you ask this question, you have to be willing to do what they say, right? So if they say such and such would be a blessing to me, and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound very exciting to me. Too bad. It's what your community needs. That's where you should step in, okay? You've got to go in. When you ask these questions to community leaders, you've got to go in with no agenda attached, okay? You can't go in thinking you have figured out what your community needs, because oftentimes you're going to be wrong, okay? So your community will tell you, hey, would be a blessing if somebody, anybody, church or otherwise, could step in and do it, okay? So the other part of the question that's not up there is you got to do it no strings attached, okay? You're not doing this because of something, or you're not doing this because you hope for something. You're just doing this simply to be a blessing, okay? So our journey began on a Challenger baseball field. Actually, it began in my office. I told you at the time I was a family pastor. And I was a family pastor, and I was overseeing children's student ministry. I had staff under me, and we were working at the time. We were writing our own curriculum for children's ministry for 4 straight years. Every day we wrote curriculum. It was overwhelming. So we were pretty busy, and in the midst of the busyness, a friend named Tom gives me a call. Tom's a BVR worker in our community, also a volunteer at the church. And he calls me up and he says, hey, you ever heard of Challenger Baseball? Nope, never heard of Challenger Baseball. He said, well, there's a league for kids with all sorts of different disabilities, and there's a team that's short on coaches. Would you and your wife be willing to come and coach with me? And I'm like, Tom, sounds like a great idea, but I'm a pastor. I'm busy, right? So I literally am saying this to him. I'm like, dude, sounds great, but how am I supposed to get outside of my office and get things ready for Sunday? Because Sunday's always coming. And we had the conversation. We hung up. And Tom calls back about a week or two later. Hey, Ryan, you given any thought to that coaching and Challenger baseball thing? And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. One condition. My whole family does it with me. So at the time, my kids were like 3 and 1, all right? So they're very, very, very young, okay? And so he's like, that's cool. All right, we'll buddy him up with other kids on the team. And it became a beautiful, beautiful experience. So here we are. Here's Tom, Melissa, myself, Rocco, and Zoe showing up to help coach the Cardinals baseball team in Canton. We are the only coaches in the entire league where there's 200 kids in this league, 11 teams, that didn't have a family member with a disability in the league. So naturally, everybody's looking at us like, why are they here? Because I think you understand, as you've worked in the disability community, it can be a very closed community at times. It's hard to break in. It's hard to develop trust. So when people saw us there and they couldn't connect any dots as to why we were there, we started to have some pretty amazing conversations. Because people would ask us, what are you doing here? And we just got to share with them. We just say, hey, we want to be a blessing to you. We don't want you to feel like you have to coach. We want you to be able to sit on the sideline and actually cheer for your kids. No strings attached. That's why we're here. So we were involved in coaching for a couple years. And I think as we talk about community partnerships, one thing that's important to understand is it takes time, okay? Sometimes things happen overnight. Sometimes things explode overnight. Most times, to build trust, it takes time. Just be patient with community partnerships, because your presence is sometimes what's most important. So your community partners can see that you're actually there and you're going to be there, all right? You're not there and you're not going to leave. So after a couple of years, we get pretty involved in Challenger baseball. And something that happened in Canton, Ohio, I don't know if it happens where you're at, but there's all these traveling teams. All these little league traveling teams, everybody thinks they're going to make the professionals. They're going to get a contract overnight. So there's all these traveling teams. They start using up all the fields, which means Challenger baseball that has very little to no budget gets squeezed out of all the fields. All right, so they don't have enough money to play out a field. And I'm standing around talking to some coaches and the leadership of Challenger baseball, and I said, well, and I didn't check with the church first yet. I had this crazy idea, and it ended up being a spirit-led thing, not indigestion. I said, what if I built you a baseball field? So I'd never done that before. I didn't know what that took. And they were like, that'd be awesome. Can you do that? I'm like, yeah, I think so. So after that, I was kind of stuck. So I went back to church leadership and I said, hey, we've got like 120 acres and we've got lots of space. Can we build a baseball field for Challenger baseball? This, again, is in a period of decline for us where we have no money and we have a budget freeze. And they're like, we'll give you the land if you can raise the money. All right? So we began the process of talking to community organizations. So we send out all these grant applications. We write up the story as to what the need is, and we start approaching hospitals, foundations, Cleveland Indians. Cleveland Indians send a check for $6,000. They're like, we'd like to see this happen. And as soon as we had the Cleveland Indians check, everybody else lined up. Everybody else wanted to be a part of it. So our local hospital, all the different foundations, we ended up raising $50,000 in less than 12 months and building the baseball field. So here we have a league of 11 teams, 200 kids, and then we also invite the Special Olympics teams beyond Challenger baseball to use our field. The thing was with the grants, we'll get the grant on the condition that we give priority scheduling to Challenger baseball, Special Olympics, and never charge them a penny to use our field. So for 6 months of a year, about 6 days a week, we have kids on our campus playing baseball. And conversations continue to happen. You know, we've got Edgewood Field is what we ended up calling. That's actually a picture of Edgewood Field, the church in the background. So we've got major donors, Cleveland Indians, Altman Foundation, Stark County Board of DD, Dubel Foundation, and many, many more. So we ended up building, one of the really cool parts of the process was in order to build bleachers and picnic tables, we went to our local workshop, and they built them for us. So we're giving jobs as well to our community. So it becomes an awesome thing, and newspaper picks it up, radio stations pick it up. My sister-in-law in Indiana calls me, and she says, hey, I heard you on the radio. I'm like, I didn't know it was on the radio. So it was a really neat thing, but it began to open doors and open eyes to the fact that First Christian Church actually cares about the disabled community of Stark County. And so we continue to have those conversations with community leaders. We invite the superintendent of Stark DD, and I'm not sure how all your counties are set up, but our county board superintendent comes to a church meeting, and we ask him the same question: how can we be a blessing? No strings attached. He said, well, we're having budget cuts in our county, and we usually have 12 social events, one social event a month for our county, but because of budget cuts, we were only going to have 10 next year. It'd be great if the church could step in and offer a social event so our folks don't feel like they're at a loss. So instantly we thought, okay, we can do that. We can throw a party. The whole Luke 14 thing, right? So we decided we were going to throw a prom for our community because most of the social events basically were a rental hall and a DJ, and that was about the extent of their social events. So we decided we would roll out the red carpet, literally, have sit-down dinner, sponsors, you know, the whole 9 yards, DJ, and flowers and games. And people from the county board said this was better than any social event we've ever been a part of. For this, we didn't know if we'd get 50 people to come or not. First one that we had 250 people come to it. And it was awesome. We've done it 5 years in a row now. We had 700 people at our last one. And it was awesome. But because it was a community partnership, because we worked directly with the county board, they gave us the mailing list to do the invites. So we worked together with them because we were meeting a need with them and because we built a relationship with them. So just a few conversations changed our world, and it was with our county board superintendent. We partnered for the event with Walgreens, Giant Eagle, Soul Pie Pizza, Walsh University, Malone University, Heritage Christian School, Canton South Middle School, Showers Family Foundation, local massage therapists. By the way, we had a VIP room. The massage therapist was only for parents in attendance. We gave away massages for free, chocolates, all sorts of things in the VIP room. Very cool thing. Local musicians and local church youth groups. I say this is a partnership because of the 250 volunteers that make up this event, more than half of them are people that don't attend our church. And it wouldn't happen without that because, again, we did this event on no budget. So we have our Jesus Prom. It's a success. We have our superintendent come back to another meeting. We say, hey, we'd like to continue to be a blessing to our community. What can we do next? And he says this. He says, well, we have the workshops in our community. We've got a bunch of different independent providers in our community, but we don't have a faith-based provider in our community. He says, I think because of your church, your infrastructure, the trust that you're building in the community, you could be really successful if you'd opened up a day program. And at this point, I'm shaking because I'm thinking, like, this is it. This is it. This is something that God's calling us to do. And so I've got this huge heart. I fumble my way through the Medicaid State of Ohio certification process. I get us certified, and then I realize before we open our doors, I don't know what I'm doing, right? Because I'm a pastor with a big heart. And no sooner than maybe a week later, there's a handprints signing choir event in our church because we like to give our space away for free to the disability community. And the lady that's in charge of this choir just happens to work in the system, has a very, very thorough knowledge of Medicaid. My wife is at that event and has a conversation with her, tells her about what we're trying to do. A week later, she's in my office, Sarah, that's the signing choir director, and we hire her to be the program director of our program that's hopefully going to open soon. So we start the program with myself and Sarah, 2 employees, and we start with 4. If Medicaid, we call them clients, we call them friends, or we call them peeps. They're our peeps. So start with 4 of us back in 2012. And now we have about 40 people that get a paycheck from our program. We have 60 friends or peeps in our program. 14 of them are part-time employees of First Christian Church. Adults with developmental disabilities that are our clerical crew that do the administrative work for the church, that are our maintenance workers, and that are our housekeepers. Again, when our church was in a period of decline, when we were going from 2,000 to 800, we fired 2/3 of our staff. We had no more administrative assistants. We had maybe 1 custodian left on staff. So here, God rescues us in the form of our friends with disabilities that society might say don't have much ability to offer. They keep our church clean. They do our administrative work. And the beautiful thing is, Medicaid pays us to have that in our building, which is just an awesome and mind-blowing thing. So that's another one of the things that we've done. It's been made possible, again, because of the Stark County Board of DD, because of BVR, and because of First Christian Church all working together to make that happen. So we continue to get asked, what's next? What's next? What's next? So because once you start making an impact in your community is going to get hungry for what's next. So I have a conversation, and I hear that in our community that there are 30 adults with developmental disabilities that don't have a guardian. They're actually on a guardian waiting list. And for me, I'm like, so what does that mean? Well, basically that means is that they have no family members in the area or family members in the area that don't care for them, that don't speak up for them, that aren't a voice for them in living situations, health situations, different things like that. So I throw it out there in one of the articles that was in the newspaper saying, hey, we'd love to make an impact by taking down that guardian waiting list. Again, don't know how that's going to happen, but we'd love to see that happen. And because we really feel like it's Proverbs 31:8. You know, it's being a voice for the voiceless. And so it's in the newspaper, and the next day, the judge of our county calls me in my church office, and she says, hey, read your article. And she said, I've got a passion for making sure that those people in our society that don't have a voice get a voice. I want you to come to my office. So when the judge tells you to come to her office, you go, right? So I'm a little bit nervous, and we're meeting together, and we developed this volunteer guardianship program where the church, check the beauty of this. The government's calling the church, asking the church for help. The probate judge is calling us and saying, hey, how can we do this? So we meet together with, again, the county board superintendent, myself, like 3 other government agencies that work separately. For the first time I've ever come around the same table, just say, hey, we've got a problem in our community. How can we work together to make this happen? I want to show you a picture here. On the left is Cindy, and in the middle is Heather. And Cindy was one of our Special Olympics families, a mom of one of our Special Olympics families, that prior to us building the baseball field had no connection with First Christian Church. But through the baseball field, what we began to see over the years, and I know I'm saying this all in 45 minutes, but it's multiple years long. Cindy and her family joined First Christian Church because of what First Christian Church did in building the baseball field. Cindy catches the vision about being a voice for the voiceless because she has a son with Down syndrome. She understands how important it is to be an advocate for somebody. And the thought of somebody with no advocate is heartbreaking to her. So Cindy starts going into some of the immediate care facilities in our community, and she becomes the guardian of Heather. And she continues to advocate for Heather to make sure that her needs are being met in her facility. And Cindy's heart continues to break because she's like, Heather's never had a family. She's in her early 20s, literally never had a family to care for her. So Cindy goes the extra mile and says, I'm not just going to be her guardian anymore. I'm going to be her mom. And she adopts Heather into her family. So they are making it official with the judge. And I am happy to tell you on May 10th, I will get the honor of baptizing Heather as well. So I've already had the honor of baptizing the entire Martin family. So we do this with no strings attached, but God drops kingdom opportunities in our lap, and he sees that people will become a part of his kingdom if we're willing to go out and embrace our communities. So the whole verse behind that, Proverbs 31:8, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. So the partners for the Volunteer Guardianship Initiative, where's the Stark County Board of GD again, APSI, Guardian Support Services, the Canton City Court System, Judge Dixie Park, and more. So we're starting to make some headway. And you'll see one of the things that we haven't done yet in our disability ministry is respite nights. I mean, if there's one thing that I've heard about while I've been here at Accessibility Summit, this is my first year at Accessibility Summit, is I've heard about respite over and over and over again. That was something that we weren't doing at First Christian Church. There's a reason we weren't doing it, though, because another church was doing it. So you don't have to do everything. And I think that's another important point. If there's somebody in your community already doing it and doing it well, you don't have to do it. Because if you look at things through the lens of the kingdom, embrace the fact that you're a part of that kingdom and it needs being met. Well, over time, this church that was doing respite decided to retool their leadership and who their focus of their ministry was going to be, and they decided to discontinue doing disability ministry altogether and to discontinue doing respite nights. And there was an outcry amongst the people that we have built relationships with that was going to this church, doing these respite nights. And we thought to ourselves, okay, we hear from families over and over again, the number one need is respite. Now we don't have a church in our community that's doing it. So what we did was we called some of the people that was of the volunteer leadership in this church, and we said, hey, we know how important it is to you, and we know how important it is to our community. We don't know what we're doing. Can you help us make sure that it continues to happen? So through a partnership with this other church, Faith Family, we decided that we would take some of the people that were still passionate about it from Faith Family. We were going to work together in conjunction with them, not steal them from their church, but just say, hey, can you help us put on this event? We quickly realized that we did not have the workforce to pull it off, so through some of our other partnerships with the local universities and schools, we got enough volunteers, and we started doing quarterly respite events at First Christian Church. And it's been awesome, and it's met a need of the families in our community, and again, expanded our kingdom impact. So another thing that's happened over this period of several years is we have the local chapter of the ARC, and I've seen a couple ARC tables out here, so I'm sure most of you are familiar with the ARC. But the local chapter of the ARC of Stark County through the ARC of Ohio went through some changes in their office. They had since all this has gone on, asked me to be on their board of directors, so I accepted that honor and sat on their board of directors. We saw a lot of different cuts in funding. We lost some pretty big donations through United Way and some other things. And the ARC office was downtown Canton, or in downtown Canton, where the big buildings were, and they quickly couldn't afford their rents. So here we are in our church that's slowly starting to grow now, that has a lot of empty office spaces. So I proposed to the ARC leadership, I said, well, what if you try to get out of your lease where you're at currently? We have a couple of different office suites that are empty. What if you moved your office to our church building and rented space from First Christian Church? And that would help you not have to fire your staff because you can't pay your rent. And so after a couple of votes, the ARC of Ohio Stark County office moved into First Christian Church, this building. So now we have our own county's ARC office on our campus in our church building. So people that are getting advocacy help and different helps from the ARC are being exposed to First Christian Church and all that we do. And it's a beautiful partnership because it allows them to continue to function and do the things that they need to do. One of the things I was really excited about, I didn't have on my presentation that I was planning on talking to you guys about, that happened yesterday at First Christian Church, was this. We actually started hosting field trips at our church for local special education departments. And I didn't have it on there because it wasn't happening until yesterday while I was here. But over the last few years, through the prom, through some different initiatives that we've done, we've gotten to know a lot of different special education departments. One of the things that we are blessed with at First Christian Church is a very big indoor playland where it's like 4 levels high, and the lower level is 75% accessible to wheelchairs. And so we started working with special education departments. We said, hey, we know it's tough to have field trips. So if your department would like to come to our church, you can play in the playland, you can use our cafe for lunch, and then we'll show a movie for the kids. It might be nice to get them out. So there they are in our preschool worship room. It looks like they're watching, what is that, Cars? Is that Cars? Yeah, looks like they're watching Cars. So again, another partnership. It costs us no money, but it's an excellent way to get your community involved and letting them know that you care about them and giving them an opportunity where they may not otherwise be able to have a field trip type experience. So we'll talk a little bit about one future partnership that we're hoping to develop, that we've yet to develop, but it's been done in other places, and we think it would be helpful. We'd like to work with the North Canton Police Department to develop a lost persons protocol to help both the police officers know how to handle an adult or a child with a disability that may or may not be verbal, that's lost in our community. So how to handle them and how to make sure that they don't stay lost, that things don't happen to them. So we've had an initial conversation with the police department, and we're hopeful that will come to be. Am I doing okay on time, Brian? Sure. All right, very good. He was threatening to flip me off. Actually, he is going to flip me off in a little bit, but he's got a sign. Yeah, he's got a sign. I'm just joking. All right, I'm going to try to wrap things up here, so you guys can ask questions here in just a second. So, the question for you, like I said in the beginning, partnerships have nothing to do with church size. Partnerships have nothing to do with church budgets. So the question is, who should you partner with? And I'm just going to list a bunch of the people that we have partnered with. They may or may not be available in your communities, but hopefully this will be enough to get the ideas flowing for you as you think about your communities. So you can partner with your local county boards of developmental disabilities, your local ARC office, workshops, day programs, school superintendents, special education departments, police chiefs, mayors, judges, Special Olympics, Challenger Baseball, and more. One of the things that I'm really excited about as I sit on the leadership team now at our church is we're going to start inviting the local mayors of the couple different cities around us into our leadership meetings to just say, hey, what's the biggest need in our community? How can we be a blessing? To ask that same question that we've been asking for the last few years is how can we be a blessing to our city? No strings attached. Because we're excited to hear what the mayors might say. So that's one thing that we'll be doing here pretty soon. The next thing that you should do is to do a personal inventory. And a lot of this is coming from the church perspective, so I apologize if that's not your perspective necessarily. But as you do a personal inventory, ask the question, what can my church give away for free? And this was a really big and fundamental thing for us in the beginning stages of community partnerships. We have space Monday through Friday that sits empty and unused. We've got stuff like this. You've got PowerPoint, you've got projectors, you've got screens that people need for meetings. So what we would do with the county board, we said, you've got a ton of employees, more than you have meeting space for, but we've got space. We'd like to give you our space for your meetings for free. Just come to our church and use our space. And it was a great way to build relationship with them. We've had the mental health board and several other boards using our building for that purpose. So next question is, what can we do differently? As a pastor, I was very guilty of being consumed by Sunday and Sunday only and not being able to see beyond that. So for me, doing things differently meant that I actually had to get out of my office and go. I mean, the Great Commission says, it doesn't say make disciples in your office or make disciples that come to you in your church. It says go and make disciples. So it was my friend Tom that helped me to begin to look at things differently. One of the systematic changes that I made as a family pastor for my staff was I forced my staff to do community hours. As part of their 40 hours a week, I forced them to make 2 or 3 hours of that a week going out into the community. Gave them no agenda. Just said, hey, wherever God leads you, whatever you're passionate about, make a connection in the community and count that as part of your 40 hours a week and see what God will do with that. So that's one of the things that we started doing differently. If you're thinking missional, great books to read would be Reggie McNeil's Missional Renaissance or Reggie McNeil's other book, The Present Future. Those two books were instrumental in helping us being able to reach out into our community to make a difference missionally. Okay. What space isn't being used during the week? Again, when we thought about our day program, we use our children's ministry space because it's full on Sundays, but Monday through Friday, there's nothing there but dust bunnies, a few mice. Yeah, we have mice. It's true. But we thought about, the space. If building a day program is not for you, that's okay. But there are day programs in your community that need space to expand. You can partner with them, and you can have people in your building. Church building rental, meeting space, we talked about that a little bit. Lots of churches have gyms or ball fields that they could be giving away for free and making incredible partnerships happen. So last thing that I wanted to share with you guys before you ask questions is, what is the one thing I wish everyone knew about community partnerships? I've got 3 things here. First thing is this. Just find the time to ask, all right? Make time in your day or your week. Carve out an hour a week, maybe, to pick up the phone or to actually go to somebody in your community and just to get to know them first and then find out what the needs are in your community and then start to ask God, what the church could do. Don't be afraid to ask community leaders. So first, find the time. Second, don't be afraid to ask because you know what? They probably realize the same thing that you realize is that you don't have the resources to do everything you wish you could do. So third thing is this, and I'm sure I'll get a question on this, the separation of church and state fears are likely overblown. Many community groups are waiting to be asked because they're facing some of the same problems that we are with resources being limited. So don't be afraid to ask, but before that, you got to find time to ask and reach out. You never know what God might do and the doors that he might open. So that's my presentation. I'm sticking to it. All right. I'm sorry I don't have any prizes for our winners because there were none. Just kidding. All right. But I do want to take time for questions, and I'll stick around afterward as well. Yes. Yeah, we're going to use the microphone, so make sure that this is on our recording.
You had mentioned a couple of books by Reggie, somebody or other. And
Reggie McNeil is his
could you
last
spell
name?
those out for us?
Yeah, Reggie McNeil. His first book is called The Present Future. The Present Future. His thank you, sir. His follow-up book to that is called The Missional Renaissance. And if you're not familiar with Reggie McNeil, he's a good guy to get familiar with. He's a part of the Leadership Network out of Dallas, Texas. Great guy, great resource. All right.
I know you mentioned that the budget was an issue which caused probably some pushback
Yeah.
from. Were there any other kind of pushbacks that you got from the initiatives that you were working on?
From church leadership?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. There was some pushback, and it was kind of strange. But as we began to see people trickling into the church, and I think what naturally happens is church members and sometimes church leaders and church staff are confronted with things that they're not comfortable with or familiar with. So you start seeing adults with disabilities. Our big thing was adults with disabilities. A lot of stuff here has been geared towards kids, but where God's blessed us is in the world of adults. But you've got adults coming in the building that don't dress like everybody else, that don't sound like everybody else, that don't do things like everybody else does. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some growing pains with that, not only from congregation, but also from previous leadership that just said, hey, these were words from previous leadership was, I love what you're doing. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm probably not going to interact with it, but I'll be a cheerleader from afar. So, I mean, there's a lot of education that had to be done, even at the church leadership level. So, yeah, definitely. Some things to work through.
So do you, are the Reggie McNeil books geared towards special need partnership or partnerships in general?
Not geared towards special needs necessarily at all. It's his big thing is the missional movement. So basically the idea of the church getting off their butt and getting out of their office and churches and going out into the community.
Okay.
And making transformation in the community, because that's how Jesus actually designed it, for us to actually go instead of waiting for people to come. So yeah, that's kind of the basis of his books. Over here.
So 2 questions. When you went from thousands to 800, how'd you pay your mortgage?
We didn't.
You did.
We couldn't. Long story short, we deeded our property back to our lender because we couldn't afford it. And it is such a big building that there's no buyers for it.
Okay.
So we are currently renters now. So we've worked out an agreement with our lender
Cool.
where we no longer own our property, but we are renting.
Okay.
And it's like a 3-year agreement.
Okay.
So.
And then the second question is, do you have a special needs ministry within the church for children and youth and stuff that's going on
Yes.
Sundays and all that stuff?
Yes, if you grab the brochure, we do have Sunday morning ministries, absolutely.
Okay, great.
So yeah, we have Shine for kids and Hidden Treasures
Okay.
for adults.
So families that you touch can find also the spiritual need they need. in the
Absolutely,
church. Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a landing spot. Once you get past kind of the community partnerships, there's a landing spot and a ministry for everybody within the church. So got to have that. Got to have that. Yeah.
Hi, kind of along the separation of church and state
Uh-huh.
question that was probably going to come up.
Yeah.
The first, I guess, thing that came to my mind was with the dance,
Mhm.
because then you did call it a Jesus prom. But
Yep.
this was coming from the county board itself that wanted the social event.
Right.
So were they completely just open to the fact that this was going to be a
Right.
faith-based focus?
We
of the dance?
actually, it is our Jesus prom, but when we communicate to the public, we call it Cafe Disco. Who's an Office fan here, by the way? Any Office fans in here? Like 7. That's not my money. But there was an episode in The Office called Cafe Disco, where they kind of partied in the basement while nobody knew they were doing that. So my wife and I are crazy Office fans and sad that it's no longer on. But Dwight Schrute is now in Backstrom, which is like totally different character, and it's strange. Sorry, I'm off track. But so we called it Cafe Disco as far as our community communication, but it is very much a Jesus prom. If any of you are familiar with Southland Christian Church in Lexington, Kentucky, they started the Jesus prom thing a long time ago. We went down there a few years before we actually did ours. Got a lot of good ideas, talked to their leadership, and I know everybody's familiar recently with A Night to Shine with Tim Tebow and his foundation and what they've done. But yeah, they were very open to it because of some of the relationships that we had built with them. So, yep. Other questions? Other questions? Nobody's going to ask me about government money? That's the number one question I always get was government money. Anybody want to know about government money? No. All right. So I tell you, we have no budget. That's true. We still have no budget for disability ministry. We use the overflow from Medicaid money that comes in through our day program. That is enough to pay for my salary and benefits plus 40 other employees. It's ridiculous. It is. It's ridiculous. So like, thank you, government, right? So all those Medicaid dollars come into the church because we provide Medicaid-approved services Monday through Friday to our day program. We also provide transportation. We get paid for transportation, and there's enough money left over at the end of the year to give back to the church because the church doesn't charge us rent, and it funds all of our ministries as well. So it is possible for the church and the government to work together and to do community and kingdom work.
Every time that subject comes up, I always hear about, the paperwork that's involved with
Yes.
all of that. So do you have somebody that just focuses on that to be sure that that's all done?
Yeah, well, yeah. We comply by all Medicaid rules, and paperwork is a nightmare.
Yeah.
The first 6 months that our program was open, it was myself and Sarah. We were the drivers for the transportation side of it. We were the direct care staff. We were the administrative side, so we did the paperwork and we did the billing. 12-hour days for 6 straight months to get it off the ground. But since then, we've been able to backfill those positions. We have multiple positions that just deal with the paperwork side of things. So, but it's all covered through revenue that we bring in. Yeah.
What about licensing? Department of Behavioral Health, anything like that? You have an overseeing body for those programs?
We are licensed by the state of Ohio as an independent provider. We have our Medicaid in our license review coming up in July this year. So we were certified for 3 years. It's been at least that, if not a little bit more. So they're coming in and they're going to do our review. But their initial time that they came and did their first review, we passed with flying colors. So yeah, as long as you dot the I's and cross the T's, you're very much within the bounds of the rules of Medicaid. One of the things that I love, and I talk about sometimes when I talk about government money, is this. As far as Medicaid goes, there's like 24 rights of the individual. One of the rights of the individual, per Medicaid's law, is the right to religion. And that's the church's open door. Because the right to religion, because the people are choosing us as their provider of services, they're coming to us with full knowledge that we are a faith-based provider. And we are meeting their right to religion because they're choosing us. And we get to talk about Jesus every single day of the week with our participants. Even one of our guys on our work crews has been baptized as a part of the experience that he had with his work crew supervisor telling him about Jesus as they are cleaning windows together at the church. Yeah. Question?
Can you expand on how you have the Medicaid, Medicare, whatever, they pay your church to employ these adults? Would you mind expanding on that? Because I think that's pretty cool.
Sure, yeah.
How that works.
So I said, we have like 60 participants in our program. 14 of those participants are actually employees of First Christian Church. So Medicaid gives us a daily rate for providing services to them. All right, so they're with us from 9 to 2. We also transport them, so that's another revenue stream. So 9 to 2 is the 5-hour day that they're with us. For those that are employed through the church, they work from 9 to noon, so a 3-hour workday, which we pay them minimum wage or better. We actually gave our first raise last year, which was awesome. So they work from 9 to 12. At 12, they have an hour break for lunch, and then from 1 to 2, We do different things like life skills. We do our faith elective. We do arts. We do fitness. We do outings within that last hour, so we can bill as a combo between employment and work and day programming. So yeah, on the 10th and 25th of every month, they get a check from First Christian Church because they're official employees of First Christian Church. They have First Christian Church uniforms and everything, so it's pretty cool. Yep. Any other questions? We have 5 minutes by my clock. How are we doing, Brian? Almost. See, turn around and look at the clock in here. Like, I see all those numbers and it makes me nervous because it makes me think it's like I'm not allowed to say the BOMB word, but it looks like it's like ticking. It's not ticking down, it's ticking up. So, sorry.
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to estimate, how many families do you think have come to your church, have joined your church, or if you have members or whatever, as a result of all this community involvement?
I'm not sure as far as an estimate goes. I can tell you that we've gone from, over the last year, gone from 800 to 1,500 as a church. So we've rebounded. I'd say at least, in this total guesstimate, at least 20% of that has been families that have been affected by disabilities in some way or shape or another. That could be lowballing it, though, because of all the different things that we've done. And there's so many people that come in that I don't even know that they're there until like several weeks later, where they say, hey, caught your sermon online, different things. Yes. We'll get the microphone coming up to you, so let's come here.
Have you thought at all about taking your day program, your vocational piece, out into the community to employ beyond your church walls?
Yes, absolutely. The state of Ohio, is, I'm sure every state, the big push is employment. So one of the things that the state of Ohio has said is we're no longer going to certify rec and leisure programs. We're only going to certify, moving forward, employment programs. So we see the writing on the wall. Basically, our plan is this. We've seen how it can work within our church context. We want to take our crews, make our church kind of like the training ground, and then take them to other churches to do clerical housekeeping and maintenance work. So, because we know that there are many churches that are in need of help, and funding is down, and they can't necessarily pay a going rate, but Medicaid pays us anyway. So anything we get on top of that would be great. Plus, it's community placement and work in the community. So that's at least our strategy moving forward. We're going to do some different art type things. So hopefully, creating art and selling it in our cafe and different places in the community would be another way that we're looking at expanding outside of our walls. Yep.
So this has been really good, huh? So help me thank Ryan.
Thank you.
Well done. Well
Appreciate
done.
it.